Hey, you're listening to the Party Talk podcast. I'm your host, Jake White from Vive 18. We exist to empower leaders in youth drug prevention. And today we are interviewing Sarah Meyers from Washington State. She's involved in her local coalition. She has an awesome youth prevention club. And I'm here to pick her brains on anything I can. And she is just on fire for her job and her mission. And this is going to be a really, really fun episode. I do have to apologize quickly. If I sound a little different, I've been sick yesterday and today, but I didn't want to miss this time with Sarah. So I'm going ahead with the interview anyway over Zoom. So if you're looking at me on YouTube, sorry, you got to look at this. But either way, I want to keep her talking, us learning from her, and all the great things that they're doing over in Washington State. So enjoy this episode of the Party Talk podcast. How's your day going?
Busy. Just seems like never-ending tasks.
Yeah, that's your life.
Busy. Yeah.
Prevention, do you have like prevention stuff, wearing 10 different hats?
Yeah, it's never one thing. It's always a million different things.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks for carving out a little bit of time to talk to me.
Yeah. And the one thing that it's good about being busy, though, is that I do like my job. And so I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to talk about my job.
Yeah, I love that. And that's even when I was talking on the phone with you, I was like, I can tell you love it. And
I do. I love the concept. I love the concept of it because it's like nobody else is doing this.
Yeah. What do you mean by this? No one else is doing this.
So like what I was at a conference, it was actually the CAD conference in Texas, and one of the workshops was what is your why? Like you hear that a lot. It's kind of a buzzword, and they worded it a little bit differently to where it was like a little bit deeper than just a why. And it was I guess you could say I do prevention because the science exists and nobody is using it.
Dang. It's like this opportunity that's sitting right here. And you're saying, why is no one doing this?
Yeah, like schools and parents and communities and all of this stuff is like, it's there and it's out for public use and nobody seems to care or use it, you know?
Right. So it's up to us to spread the word, get it out there.
Yep.
That's good. Well, let's jump right in. Just for everybody listening, they don't know Sarah Meyers yet.
No.
Give us a background on, where you live, what kind of work you do, and how long you've been doing it.
Yeah, so I live in a very rural community up here in Washington State, in Garfield County, Pomeroy, Washington. We're the least populated county in Washington State, so pretty rural here. And we've had a prevention coalition here for about 11 years, and I've been involved for 10 of the 11 years. Almost 10.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's I think you could say that like most people who find prevention stumble into it. It's not usually something that people set out intentionally to do.
Right. The same way for you, or?
Yes. So I guess I graduated college with a degree in psychology, and I moved away from my small town, and I had no intention of ever coming back because A, I didn't see any career path here for professionals. B, I didn't really know what I wanted to do anyway. And C, I just knew that I needed to get somewhere bigger with more opportunities. But I graduated with a degree in psychology and was having a hard time finding a job. It was kind of a time period where the job market was just really crummy. And so my dad showed me this job posting in our hometown newspaper. And I was kind of in between jobs anyway. So I was like, God, I really would like to prefer not to do this. So that involved like a whole entire move home. And they were like, it's just temporary. You only need to do it for like a couple years in order to like you get something on your resume, you know? And I was like, I guess you could just say fast forward 10 years and now I've made it my career. Moved back to the hometown. So
yes, we got Sarah. Good job.
Yep.
Whoever sucked her in. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, so one of the things that you had told me that I found really interesting as well is that so the coalition's been in existence for 11 years and you didn't get youth involved until 2 years ago. Tell me about that.
I would say
what had to happen.
Yeah, we've had youth involved in one-offs, like, oh, there's a conference, let's bring some youth to it, or there's a small project, let's bring some youth to it. But so I guess you could say this is a story of sustainability. So we've had youth involved, but it was without a plan, you know, like there was no structure in place. There was no follow through. So they learn a whole bunch of stuff at a conference, but then everyone just goes back to their normal everyday lives. And there's no plan to put anything in place because everyone's overworked. People and prevention just gets put to the bottom of the list because we had no plan.
We were talking about how what needed to be in place for youth to get involved. You kind of had some youth involved in and out, but no plan.
Yeah. And it was also a staffing thing because there would be somebody in charge of doing youth club stuff, but it wasn't like the main part of their job. So it kind of got pushed to the side. And it took us about 3 years of like in-depth conversations with the school. And what we did in our school was we set up the Youth Coalition as a senior project because our school requires senior projects for graduation requirements. And it took us about 3 years to like get on the docket with kind of get on their radar, like, hey, this is something we're trying to do. We're trying to make it youth led. We also were able to get a new funding source to pay youth advisors in the school. We pay them a small stipend and they are in the school, but they're teachers and staff because we don't have prevention staff specific in the school. So they're just trusted adults who kids see every day. So,
wow, that's a really cool model.
Yeah.
So they get paid a little bit as a stipend and they get credit for their senior project. Does it help the dedication? Well, I know David, I know one of your students, he's one of our ambassadors at PCE, and so I know how awesome he is.
Yes.
More students like that.
Yes, it's very cool. Yeah, so our adult advisors get paid, not the seniors.
Oh, okay.
No, the seniors just take responsibility and they have checkpoints throughout the year. There are things that they have to do in order to turn in to say that they're making progress towards their project.
Okay, very cool. All right, so the clarification was that the students aren't paid, but the advisor is, which is nice because then it's like they're doing extra work. They're getting...
It is a lot of work, and that's the structure we talked about. So I think it's a really great idea. I don't know how you would do this and make it truly youth-led without something else there to make it a youth-led sort of structure.
Right. No, I think that is a barrier, because if you want youth to be involved and to stay involved and build some momentum, if it has a structure like a class, you've got them for a semester or a year, and you can create some momentum and they can pass it down to the next year's leaders. And what's really unique too is seniors in high school are usually the ones who are checked out. Like,
yeah.
If you didn't have this, there wouldn't be seniors probably on your coalition.
Yeah.
Maybe David would because he's so passionate about it.
Yeah.
No.
Well, what we did so during that 3-year sort of like pause, I mean, it was kind of a COVID thing too. It was a staffing thing. It was a change of funding thing. But during that like 3-year pause, we did a focus group with some kids who had been involved in the one-offs before, who were now older, And we asked them, if you were going to redesign all of this, what would you do to make high school kids want to be involved? Because one thing that we found was that if junior high, since our school is really small, we have junior high and high school in the same building. And what we've heard was that the older kids don't want to be involved in something if it's mostly junior high kids. And so we kind of had the idea that we were moving towards like an upperclassman sort of model, because the younger kids look up to them anyway. Like, they're already the coolest kids in school. Like, the seniors are the leaders of the pack, right? And so the junior high kids are involved, and it's something that they have to look forward to, because when you are in 10th grade and up, you can go to conferences and things like that out of state. So
Wow, that's so smart. I think that it probably led you to skip a couple steps, because my recommendation when people ask, should I start with middle or high school students? I say start with middle school, hands down, because they buy in so much easier.
yeah.
Then you're right, though, you have the influence of the juniors and seniors. So you have to wait until they become a junior or a senior to enjoy that perk.
Yeah, exactly. And so because if you get kids involved really young, and if it's not seen as, I don't know, I hate using the term cool, but if it's not truly embedded in the youth culture of the school in a way that the youth love and respond to, then they're just going to drop off when they get older. So,
yeah, that's good. All right. I'm pulling that out of my brain to know, like, is the strategy of, yes, middle school, but if you can embed it into the school structure for senior class project, or if they have one of the schools I'm working with in Wisconsin, they have something called communities, and it's for juniors in high school. So that's their in to do that for that. So if you can embed it in the school structure, that if anyone's listening, that can be part of your pitch to the school.
Yeah. Another part of our kind of sustainability plan is that a lot of kids want to take a dibs on their senior project a couple of years in advance, because there's some senior projects in our community that are recurring. Like, there's a community scholarship dinner, there's our youth coalition, and so kids as young as 9th, 10th grade are aware of kind of what is up for grabs for the senior project. So right now in our youth coalition, we have a gap where we don't really have a group of juniors who want to take it on next year. And so we're bringing in those 10th graders, and I can already tell that they're going to be amazing leaders. And so they'll actually be our leaders for 2 years.
Wow. That's neat. Okay. I remember David telling me when I asked him in a podcast, one of the episodes. So you can look back if you want to hear one of her students, David, talk about his experience and why he got involved. And he did say it was like one of the coveted experiences, because you got to travel.
Yes.
It's like everybody wants that. And how cool to have a group. People are like lining up to be a part of your coalition. How many students are you able to have? What does your size look like right now?
I would say that almost any kid at our school at one point probably said that they were a member. We had numbers thrown around last year that they were 70 kids. I think right now we have 40 kids at least who are coming to meetings regularly.
Cool. That's great. And what do you do at the meetings? Are you planning? Are you doing education? What does that look like?
So I guess you could say this is another part of our sustainability, or it just makes me a bad coalition leader. I've never been to one. They are so self-run that they don't need me.
Well, hey, that's good. That's good.
I know, right? It's kind of, I feel bad, but they're so self-ran that the kids know what they have to do, because they know they have to complete Red Ribbon Week. They have to do X, Y, and Z for their project. And so they get the kids together at lunchtime and it's announced, and they, as far as I know, they're delegating tasks, like who's going to help with Red Ribbon Week trivia, who's going to help set up for our Red Ribbon Week pizza party, And we have this conference coming up, and we have a Saturday local youth event coming up. And
Wow.
they just do
And
it.
that's amazing.
Yeah. And I just want to point out again that this took years to get the relationship with the school, to get a kind of a common language and a common knowledge among teachers and staff to sort of understand prevention from a different perspective. And so I don't want people to think that this is something easy and that, oh my gosh, they have such a successful youth coalition. These things take a very long time to lay the foundation for them to be successful.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so good that you've been there for a long time, because you've helped lay that foundation and you've seen it all the way through. I would love to ask you this we mentioned on our last call, you were talking about Washington State and how it's funded.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's things that other states can copy, but can you tell us a little bit about that and how you're funded?
Yeah. So in Washington State, I believe that they use a higher percentage of substance use disorder funds towards prevention. And so we have a program here in Washington State called the Community Prevention Wellness Initiative, also known as CPWI. And the way that the prevention funding used to be about 10, 12 years ago would be that each county would get a population-based level of funding, and it was based on how many people live in your county. It wasn't based on the risk factors in your county or your community. So it wasn't enough money to really dig in and do deep community level change. It was mostly just enough money to do like some media campaigns and pay a person, and that was pretty much it. Okay. So they did something called the Prevention Redesign Initiative, PRI, where they gave a huge chunk of money to the most high need community in each county. And they did one new cohort a year to sort of build the program slowly. And our community was identified as a cohort 3. And right now, I think they're up to cohort 7 or 8 or 9. And what started was the first goal was to get one CPWI community coalition in every county. And now they're going through and doing additional to the bigger counties. Okay. So I think that there are almost 100 fully funded community coalitions here in our state. So
wow,
that's 100 communities, 100 school districts who have this opportunity with this funding.
Okay. And that is like taxpayer dollars being allocated specifically to prevention. It's not like you have to, I'm sure you still have to apply for certain things, but it's just like, oh, no, you don't. Okay.
It's actually really great because this used to be funds that counties would get anyway. Like if you rent a county, you get a road department, you get county government, and you get a little bit for health. And a little dark part of that funding for health is also drug and alcohol prevention. So we don't have to apply every year. The only major burden, I guess, is that what makes the program so successful is that it is also extremely detailed. And so our plans are very, very detailed. Our budgets are very, very detailed. We spend a lot of time reporting activities. We spend a lot of time working with the state and working with our prevention system manager to make sure that we are doing good prevention and only evidence-based programs.
Yeah. No, that's good. I had a call with Washington and with Utah where they had a document saying, does your program align with these standards of effective prevention strategies? And it was so refreshing to have that, to see the accountability that is within the state, and that other states are, tagging on now and learning from it too. And a lot of the things that I've learned, because I've been in, I accidentally got into prevention like most people, but
so we all accidentally get into prevention,
right? But I didn't even know what. I was just throwing sober house parties at my college, So I was like building community. So the whole learning curve of about everything about prevention strategies and the frameworks and all the evidence-based programs is very new. And so for me, it's really cool to see how we can fit 518 into those programs as well. And there's a lot of excitement around building partnerships because I'll be completely honest with you. I was at a call with another school in Washington and they had big dreams. And I love it when people dream big. So I'm like, yes, okay, we're starting prevention clubs. They're going to throw events. Speaking is just a launching point to get youth involved. It's not the end all be all. We're using a toolkit to reinforce the factors and do restorative justice programming. And they're all like, hey, how do we measure this? Is it evidence-based? And I'm like, okay, this is not my cup of tea. and like that would be a red flag for most people. But I luckily have partners that help me with evidence-based strategies. And my answer is always, let's create whatever we need to use to measure it in your community. I am totally open to any of those things because we can't keep using, old strategies that didn't make a difference. And if we want innovation, like we have to innovate to try new things, and our culture is changing so fast, but we have to measure it too. So I think that's so important.
Yeah, I love that. I just am so excited to be a part of this such a young field where we're kind of doing like, there's still a lot of bad prevention out there. And I think those of us who understand sort of the new way of doing prevention, it's not shame-based. It's not fear-based. It's, yes, drugs and alcohol are a problem, but the kids using, that's just a sign that there's a deeper issue. It's not really about demonizing drugs or drug users. It's just recognizing that this is a risk factor for youth. And when you make your community healthier, a byproduct is just less drug use. So it's I see prevention as kind of a concept rather more than anything else, because it's not really something you can explain in one sentence or one conversation.
Yeah. Okay, I would love to end on this, Sarah, because I can tell you're passionate and you know a lot about prevention. So I'm going to challenge you to pick one thing, one area of prevention that you like, you're into, maybe you're most passionate about. And can you share a couple tips on that area that maybe people listening, if you have good ideas, they can steal on or they can learn from? Anything?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So when I first got started in the prevention field was 2013, 2014. And the hot topic at that time was the adverse childhood experiences study. There was a documentary filmed in a town nearby my town called Walla Walla. And the documentary was called Paper Tigers. And it was about an alternative school who changed their disciplinary methods to be restorative and to be trauma informed, and to understand that the kid who is violent in the classroom, there's a reason for that. They said all behavior is communication. And the reasons that we see behaviors in kids is there's always a deeper meaning for it. And so I think just looking at the adverse childhood experiences is something that I'm very interested in. If you haven't heard about the adverse childhood experiences study, there's tons of information online, but it's basically calculates the trauma that you experience as a child and things that are not your fault. And we know that if you have more ACEs, you're more likely to use drugs when you're older. You're more likely to have mental health issues. You're more likely to be incarcerated. You're more likely to even have cancer and diabetes and heart disease because of the trauma that gets down into your cells and your brain. And it's not these kids' fault. So the thing that gets me excited about prevention is the adverse childhood experiences study that says that people who grow up to use drugs are not bad people. They just had a life that was not conducive to normal, typical brain development. And then that's something something that came across my, I guess, interests, things that I've heard at conferences and things like that, was the positive childhood experiences study. And the positive childhood experiences study studied things in kids' lives that seemed to counteract the negative. And the positive childhood experiences are things like you feel connected to school, you have a good high school experience, you have more than two people who you can talk to, you have more than two adults you're close with, you feel close with adults who are not your parents, things like that. And I just love that because I love that this is scientifically proven. I think one of the positive childhood experiences is participating in community traditions is literally evidence-based to show reductions in drug use and mental health issues. So I love those two studies together that complement each other.
Wow, that's cool. Okay, so if you're listening, check out ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and Positive Childhood Experiences, and doing some research, because I'm sure that there's some awesome trainings on how to use this information to do more effective prevention, and it can help inform your strategies and everything like that.
Exactly. There's another kind of jumping off the PCEs. There's also a new health science area called HOPE, HOPE, and the acronym is Health Outcomes from Positive Experiences. And that's a really even more brand new area of science that I find incredibly interesting. So if you want to talk about self-care, that is like evidence-based self-care.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. I love how you are nerding out about this stuff. Like, I'm glad there are people like you in the field that are doing like super into the research so you can help inform different programs that are out there and different coalitions. Because we kind of talked about how Washington seems to be on the cutting edge of prevention, and there's a lot of studies done at the universities.
Yes.
And y'all are moving, it seems like, in a very positive direction. So
yeah, big time. There are some amazing prevention leaders in our state who've been involved with the Prevention Redesign Initiative, way even back before it was called that, and with the Community Prevention Wellness Initiative, CPWI. There are people in my field who have literally published documents on what works and what doesn't work in prevention, and we have shared those with the nation. My colleague Joe Nigel wrote the What Works and What Doesn't Work in Prevention handbook, and it goes into all of the data about how scare tactics are shown to not be effective, how having one-off speakers is not shown to be effective, things that portray a teen as a drug user, whether they're acting or using those beer goggles, things that portray a child as having used drugs are not effective. There's so many things that you can study. And one of the things I heard along my years of training was, are we being busy or are we being effective? And I think there's so much stuff that we do that is busy, but it's not effective. And it's hard. It's hard to always do the evidence-based thing because a lot of times they're not as fun. They're not as glamorous. They're not as showy. They don't feel like you did something. Like, one of the places my heart is not as passionate about would be prevention policy. So those things are really, really hard. But we have to balance the fun stuff with the stuff that is actually shown to work. So
yeah, well said. Well, this has been awesome, Sarah. I can't wait to see you in a few weeks at Southwest Prevention Fest. That'll be really fun to have you. If people,
yeah, I'll be here.
Yeah, people are listening and you don't know about it yet. Basically, we're teaching students public speaking skills, social media skills, and then also event planning skills. And they'll get to practice and leave with a plan, leave with social media videos that they've created together. And of course, we are throwing an amazing after party. And I think you're probably coming from the farthest point. because right? We'll have to have something special for you.
That's exciting. Well, one of our, like I said, our youth coalition leaders they're taking it on as their senior project. And so they feel a deep honor. They feel a deep sense of ownership about everything prevention because they present it to a board of community members during senior exit interviews. So they feel a huge amount of ownership. And one of our youth coalition members, David, was approached at the CADCA conference to be a youth ambassador. And apparently he's been doing all of these things behind the scenes. And then he asks us if there's funding to go to a youth conference in Arizona. And my first reaction was, you did what? And you're a youth ambassador for who? And you've been doing all this stuff on your own time on the side? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, we'll go. And so he's a senior, and he's recruiting some sophomores for us to continue the project when they graduate. So David's a really cool kid. So we're going to be his cheerleading squad down there.
I love it. And I love it.
And Arizona is one of the states that I've never connected with on anything prevention related. It seems like I've connected with a lot of different programs in a lot of other states, but haven't connected with what they do in Arizona. So that'll be a great connection.
Yeah, I'll definitely be introducing you to some incredible people because we're not too shabby. All right. This has been awesome, Sarah. Thank you so much for being on the Party Talk podcast, where we empower leaders in youth drug prevention. And if you are listening, I'll see you next Monday for another episode.